So what do I think are the 10 greatest acting Oscar nominations of the 1990s? Hey guys, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. So I begin my 90s series on the channel today. Over the next few months, I will be talking about the best Oscar wins and best supporting actor, supporting actress, actor, actress of the 90s. But before I get to that, I have to talk about the best and worst acting Oscar nominations of that decade. There were some truly remarkable nominations we're going to be discussing today. Nominations I still think about, movies I'm still watching over and over again. It was tough, you guys, to get this down to 10, but I managed. Let's begin with number 10, Best Supporting Actor, Tom Cruise, Magnolia.
No! No! You will not control me. No! No! You will not take my soul. No! No! You will not win this game.
I adore this performance from Tom Cruise. It is still to date my favorite of his. I mean, he's great in Born on the 4th of July and Jerry Maguire, and I've enjoyed him in action films throughout the decades, but this is his crowning achievement in Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpiece from 1999. Tom Cruise as Frank T.J. Mackey. He just slays every minute of his screen time. Even though there's a huge ensemble cast, it's more than 3 hours long, he stands out big time. He is taking chances, he is being bold, he's playing this guy unlike any other character he's played in his entire career, and he just goes for it. He grabs this character by the throat and doesn't let go. I enjoy this movie so much. I watch it every couple years. I am always most excited in that movie to see the Tom Cruise performance. He got the Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor after he won the Golden Globe, which was a very cool moment. I thought maybe on his third Oscar nomination he could win, but it didn't happen. Michael Caine won for The Cider House Rules. I've talked about that win before. It didn't need to happen. Tom Cruise should have won that hands down. It would have been a great moment. It would have been a great Oscar win, but because he's only a nominee, he gets to be in this video. Number 9, Best Supporting Actress, Joan Cusack, In and Out.
Was there, any other time you might have told me this?
I had to include a comedy nomination on this list. It is such a funny performance. There's a nice arc to her character. The way she descends into madness, really, after her husband comes out to her at their wedding. Her trying to pick up men at a bar, still in her wedding dress. This performance by Joan Cusack is iconic. It's so hilarious, and it's one the Academy easily could have overlooked. It's not really an Oscars vehicle, In and Out, but Joan Cusack, she had a previous Oscar nomination for a comedic performance in Working Girl. Here we are 9 years later, they overlooked her for Addams Family Values, which I still haven't forgiven the Academy for, but thank God they got her in once again into Best Supporting Actress for In and Out. She was never going to win. That was the year of Kim Basinger, LA Confidential. She just made sense for that film, which was very acclaimed. But Joan Cusack for In and Out would have made an incredible winner as well. Number 8, Best Actress, Geena Davis, Thelma and Louise.
If you get on that radio, you're going to find out that we're wanted in 2 states and probably considered armed and dangerous. At least I am. And then our whole plan is just going to be all shot to hell.
I frickin' love this performance. I have adored Geena Davis since childhood in movies like Beetlejuice, A League of Their Own. I love her performance in The Fly, in the underrated The Long Kiss Goodnight. She has had some great performances throughout the years, including her Oscar-winning performance in The Accidental Tourist, but I think her best performance on film is in Ridley Scott's Thelma and Louise. Her physical and emotional transformation she goes through in that movie is off the charts excellent. She's kind of a broken woman at the beginning. She's in a loveless marriage with the guy who doesn't appreciate her. And so she goes on this trip with her friend Louise, played by Susan Sarandon, also a great Oscar nomination for Best Actress that year. And after a rape attempt against Thelma, after she and Louise are on the run from the authorities, I just love how Thelma falls into this role as an outlaw. She comes to really love it. She thinks she's good at it. That scene with the police officer when she's pointing a gun in his face and she's like, "You need to get into the trunk now." And Louise is like, you know, Like, Geena Davis gets so much to play in Thelma and Louise, and by the end, when she and Louise are sharing those final words together and that kiss, it's just such a deeply emotional journey for both characters, but by a smidge for me, I prefer the Geena Davis performance in Thelma and Louise. She is so much fun to watch in that. This is her finest hour in the movies. She was never going to win. There was probably some vote splitting between her and Susan Sarandon, and that was the year of Jodie Foster in The Silence of the Lambs. Like, one of the best performances from that era. So Davis wasn't going to win, but I'm so happy she and Sarandon both got into Best Actress, especially Davis. Number 7, Best Supporting Actor, Edward Norton, Primal Fear.
I am disappointed in you, I don't mind telling you. There never was an Aaron.
What a debut for an actor. One of the best ever, I think, in the history of the movies. Edward Norton came out of nowhere and delivered this monumental performance in Primal Fear opposite Richard Gere and Laura Linney, a great cast in that. Because audiences had never seen Edward Norton before, they didn't know, can we trust this guy? Is he messing with us? Is he genuine? You didn't really know watching Primal Fear in early 1996. He was brand new to the cinema scene, so by the time we get to his final moment in the movie, you are like, whoa, where did this guy come from? He is so great in every moment in that film, but especially at the end. I mean, for him to upstage Richard Gere in a movie, Richard Gere was one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood in the 90s, and along comes Edward Norton and he steals that film away from everyone else in the cast. He is brilliant in Primal Fear. I was thrilled to see him win the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. I thought maybe he could win the Oscar, but no, they chose Cuba Gooding Jr. for Jerry Maguire. That's also a great win and a very memorable speech. But I think when we look back now on that Best Supporting Actor race, especially since Edward Norton to date has still never won, it makes sense that year the Oscar for Supporting Actor should have gone to Edward Norton. Number 6, Best Actor, Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption.
Young fellas like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job. What do you really want to know?
Here's another performance in film that at the time was appreciated, people liked it, but you look back all these decades later and it's like, how did Morgan Freeman not win for that? He is phenomenal in The Shawshank Redemption. What a memorable, touching performance from one of our great actors. I love his voiceover work in that film. The chemistry between Freeman and Tim Robbins is so fantastic. The acting Freeman does just with his expressions, his eyes, when he's not saying a word. It's such a beautiful, nuanced performance. Maybe it was too subtle to win. It's not a physical transformation, so I guess you could look at that and say, well, is it really one of the best performances in film in the 1990s? Yes, it is. I think it is. Another actor could have played it too sentimental, too saccharine. He could have blended into the background of that story in a way Morgan Freeman never does. He finds just the right notes to play that character all the way to that emotional ending. I just love this movie. I feel like I love it even more every time I watch it. Every 5 to 6 years, I have to put on The Shawshank Redemption. And there's a reason it's like number 1 on IMDb, the most loved film in the world. It's that story, the direction, the cinematography, the slow, methodical pace that envelops the viewer. But really, like right near the top, it is the Morgan Freeman performance. What a masterclass in acting. Again, because it's kind of a subtle performance, he wasn't going to win Best Actor for 1994. That prize went to Tom Hanks for Forrest Gump, which at the time made a lot of sense. But like Edward Norton in Primal Fear, looking back all these decades later, Best Actor of 94, you know, you could go with John Travolta, Pulp Fiction. That would have been a great win too. But I think most of our choices would be Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption. Number 5, Best Supporting Actor, Samuel L. Jackson, Pulp Fiction.
What?
What country you from?
What?
What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
So speaking of Pulp Fiction, here is one of the most iconic performances in 1990 cinema. I think Jackson is the shining star in that movie, one that has so many incredible performances like John Travolta, like Uma Thurman. It has some of Bruce Willis's finest work on film. You have actors coming into that movie who have one scene maybe, and they absolutely blow you away. Quentin Tarantino was firing on all cylinders in Pulp Fiction. This was the one that truly put him on the map. Such a fun movie to watch over and over again. But when it comes to the best performance in that film, the one we think about all the time to this day, I do think it's Samuel L. Jackson. He is magnetic in that movie. When he's angry, that long monologue he has just before he shoots that guy to death, he is so terrifying in a sense, but he can also be very, very funny. That scene in the car where the guy is accidentally shot to death and the way he reacts to that, and he's just like, what? We are in broad daylight here. We have to get off the main streets. He is so funny in that film. He's also very intense. When he's talking, you can't look away. You hang on his every word. That is the case with some of the other actors in the movie. But there's something about Samuel L. Jackson. He had been working in films for a few years, but Pulp Fiction was the announcement of a major new star. Somebody who could be a character actor, play supporting roles in the years to come, also lead his own movies. He has such a striking presence, especially in Pulp Fiction. His hair, his mannerisms, how he says the dialogue. This is one of the great performances of the 1990s, and he should have won. He didn't. Best Supporting Actor for 1994 went to Martin Landau, Ed Wood, which is also a dynamite performance. I can't be too mad about that. But when he lost, Samuel L. Jackson famously said, "Shit." And you know what? That reaction from Samuel L. Jackson made total sense, because he would have been an all-timer Oscar win in Best Supporting Actor. Number 4, Best Actress, Meryl Streep, The Bridges of Madison County.
Go to hell! It isn't human not to be lonely, and it isn't human not to be afraid! You're a hypocrite and you're a phony!
So Meryl Streep has 4 Oscar nominations for 90s films, one of which will be on my worst of list coming up here. She had ups and downs throughout the 90s. One of the ups, of course, is Death Becomes Her, which is one of my favorite Meryl Streep performances. But she's also in The House of the Spirits, Before and After. Not everything she's making in like the mid part of the 90s is great. But The Bridges of Madison County, that is one of her finest performances ever. She is devastating in that film, directed by Clint Eastwood. He's also the star, of course, and you wouldn't think Eastwood and Streep would have any chemistry, but they do. It crackles. Their scenes of falling in love are so natural, so authentic. You really feel the chemistry between them. You really feel the pain of this middle-aged housewife who doesn't really love her husband anymore. She needs an adventure. She needs something new in her life. And along comes this photographer who just sweeps her off her feet. And at the end of the film, she has to make the crucial decision. Does she run away with this guy, or does she stay in this loveless marriage for her kids and stuff? The moment when she has her hand on the door handle, she is thinking heavily of getting out of the car and running away with Eastwood's character. The emotions on Streep's face in that scene, I have never forgotten. Her terror, her yearning, the rain coming down on the car, her absolute heartache when she lets Eastwood's character go. I mean, it is just some of Streep's finest work in a career that has had one monumental achievement after another going back decades. The Bridges of Madison County is Meryl Streep at her best. She should have won the Oscar, but she already had 2. It's something I've talked about on the channel a lot. It's hard to win a third, unless you're Sean Penn. In 1995, I just think it was too soon. It wasn't going to happen. Best Actress was very stacked that year. I mean, Sharon Stone would have made a great winner too. I've talked about her before. In Casino, she is incredible in that movie. Everybody's great in Best Actress 1995. Susan Sarandon was very much overdue for Dead Man Walking, so she won that night. makes sense. But Meryl Streep in The Bridges of Madison County, I mean, that would have aged extremely well if that was one of her 3 Oscar wins. Number 3, Best Actor, Denzel Washington, Malcolm X.
And more importantly, he's trying to tell him that if he doesn't do something about it, it's going to explode any day now. That's right.
This one always pisses me off when I remember he didn't win for that, you know? He is so mesmerizing playing the real-life Malcolm X in that 3-hour-plus biopic from director Spike Lee. Washington is that entire film. You are glued to the screen watching him from scene to scene. The way he underplays a lot of his moments. It's not a big, grand, shouting type of role. It's a subtle performance. That's maybe why, kind of like with Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption, it was going to be tricky to see him win that, but he just becomes Malcolm X in that movie. It's a physical transformation, an emotional transformation. I love his scenes with Delroy Lindo, with Angela Bassett, who is also great in that. He allows himself to embody everything good and bad about Malcolm X. Somebody who wasn't perfect, he had his flaws, but throughout his journey, he had a small part in changing the world. This was a story that needed to be told, and in 1992, Denzel Washington was the right actor at the right time for this project, teaming up with Spike Lee. It's a match made in heaven. It has been in a variety of other movies, but never quite like Malcolm X. Denzel Washington should have won that Oscar for Best Actor 3 years after he won Best Supporting Actor for Glory. But 1992 was the year Al Pacino was grossly overdue. He had never won. He had 2 nominations that night. They were finally giving Al Pacino his Oscar, and it happened in Best Actor for Scent of a Woman, which is like a decent performance, but it shouldn't be Al Pacino's Oscar win. Most people agree with that. Denzel Washington, hands down, should have been the Best Actor Oscar win for 1992. Number 2, Best Actress, Angela Bassett, What's Love Got to Do with It?
That's your best shot. You can't do no better than that.
So speaking of Angela Bassett, who's also great in Malcolm X, this is her crowning achievement. This is her finest hour of her entire career, playing Tina Turner in 1993's What's Love Got to Do with It? I mean, just frickin' wow. Talk about an emotional transformation, what she has to do in her emotional scenes in that film, often alongside Lawrence Fishburne as her abusive husband. The disdain, the screaming, how she fights back. When she fights back against him, you are cheering in the audience. Bassett completely gives herself over to those raw moments of emotion and terror. And then you also have the dancing scenes, performing these iconic songs as Tina Turner and just lighting up the stage, always giving 100%, the choreography, the movement, everything she is called upon to do as Tina Turner throughout that film, physically and emotionally. Talk about demanding. Talk about a role not anyone could have played. Angela Bassett stepped up to the plate and gave one of the finest performances in 1990 cinema. She won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Comedy or Musical. That was such an awesome, well-deserved moment. I adore her speech at the Globes. She would have also made a great Oscar winner too. She would have become the first woman of color to win Best Actress at the Oscars. That would have been a moment. But that was also the year of Holly Hunter in The Piano, which was a more beloved film with Academy members. She had been nominated before, so she won Best Actress, and that's a good win. I'm not going to say it's a bad one. But what if the victory instead had gone to Angela Bassett for What's Love Got to Do with It? That would have been one of my favorite Oscar wins in the history of the ceremony. And finally, that takes me to the number 1 choice. What do I think is the greatest acting Oscar nomination of the 90s? Someone who somehow didn't win. This was a very easy call for me to make. My number 1 choice is Best Supporting Actor, Ralph Fiennes, Schindler's List.
They're not gone. They're here.
This is the loss in acting at the Oscars of that decade that still gives me a headache. That still is like, what? How did that happen? Ray Fiennes in Steven Spielberg's masterpiece Schindler's List from 1993 is one of the most memorable villains in cinema history. The evil that lurks behind his smiles, his low-key, kind of quiet persona, the way he has no emotion when these violent atrocities are happening all around him, whether he commits the deed or he doesn't, in stark black and white cinematography that in a way makes him even more sinister. Ray Fiennes is absolutely brilliant in Schindler's List, and he should have won. This should have been an easy victory for Ray Fiennes in supporting actor at the Oscars. They went instead with Tommy Lee Jones' The Fugitive, which is a fun performance. I like him in that movie. He's a nice contrast to the Harrison Ford character. But Tommy Lee Jones beating out Ray Fiennes for Schindler's List? I don't really know what was wrong with the Academy that year, especially given Schindler's List goes on to win Best Picture and Best Director. Liam Neeson is also nominated for that film and Best Actor, but that category was overly stacked that year. Tom Hanks for Philadelphia, that just made sense. But Best Supporting Actor, that didn't need to go to Tommy Lee Jones. He wasn't overdue. That was his second nomination for a more comedic performance in The Fugitive. So that one's always confused me a bit, to be honest. Like, he could have the nomination, fine, but the win, come on, should have been Ray Fiennes for Schindler's List. A chilling villain performance for the ages. Ray Fiennes still has never won an Oscar. And it should have happened that first time around. It should have been extremely easy for the Academy to give that movie Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor. It would have been so well deserved and one of the finest acting Oscar wins of the last 30 to 40 years. But because it's only a nomination, Best Supporting Actor Ray Fiennes in Schindler's List gets to be number one in this video.